It's a warm welcome to another edition of the Matchbook NFL Betting Podcast. If you're watching us on the big screen now, you can see three men who absolutely live for Sundays. Top left of the screen, Mr. Drew Dinsick. The bottom left, Mr. Adam Chernoff. On the bottom right, the Atlanta Falcons lover himself, Mr. Brad Allen. Man, he got those Falcons bang on. We will talk about that in a second with you, Prof. Week 11 takeaway, guys. We had 4 winners, 4 losers. Not quite in the red, but also not quite in the black. One of those weeks. Drew Dinsick, a bit of a disappointing one for you also.
Yeah, week 12 was tough, man. Week 11 was tough. Week 12 looks too good to be true. There's so many plays on this week 12 card. I can't wait to get back on the saddle here. You hate to see the market move against you so substantially when you have a read on some sides. And I thought I had a good number at 3.5 with the Eagles, and then that close 4.5, and then similarly I thought the Panthers were going to expose the Falcons defense for being true frauds, but was not meant to be. That Falcons defense put on a hell of a show. And I'm struggling looking at this Tampa Bay line this week, wondering if it's they turn back into pumpkins against against an offense that can actually pass, or if the switch of Raheem Morris to defensive coordinator was all they needed, because they're playing like the Falcons we expected to see this year. So this is a tricky one.
Yeah, great move, and I think he's coming up from wide receivers coach to defensive coach. That's an unbelievable move. Obviously, his background is defense. Adam Chernoff, you were the only one of the 4 of us hit your best bet last week. Buffalo Bills -5.5, easy cover in Miami.
Yeah, that was one of the games that went the right way. I guess my only takeaway, we're obviously all bettors within the market, but I think if you read between some of the lines of things that were published, there was a certain type of bettor that did extremely well last week, and a certain type of bettor that did not do so well. So it'll be interesting to see how things carry on to week number 12.
Brad Allen, I quote you, it's your funeral. You had the Patriots. We all had the Eagles. And like you said, it was our funeral.
They basically couldn't get separation, the Eagles receivers. But I think that was a kind of a key part of the handicap, is that they just had 0 weapons. To be fair, we didn't know that Alshon Jeffrey wouldn't play when we recorded it, but when he went down, they just had nothing. And I know the Eagles went up 10-0, but it was all screens, all dump offs, all runs, and it just felt like it was kind of inevitable that it was, the tide would turn. We might get to the Eagles later as well, I think.
Anything else from you on last weekend, Brad? Kind of a mixed bag for you on insights. 2 to 4 again.
Yeah, 2 and 2, juiced out, as they say. It was fine.
Just one of those ones. Adam, you touched on it there. A hell of a lot of favourites winning. So there was a lot of winning ACCAs at Matchbook last weekend. A lot of favourites winning, which means there's a lot of ACCAs. And if you haven't heard the big news over the last couple of weeks, we now have ACCAs on Matchbook. So check those out as you're getting stuck into Red Zone on Sunday night. Let's move on to Week 12. A hell of a week, I think, looking at some of these fixtures. Some of the marquee games in it are really big ones. Let's start with Monday night, and we're going to take the Baltimore Ravens at the Los Angeles Rams. 2 teams I would suggest going in very different directions right now. Current betting at Matchbook, the Baltimore Ravens here at 1.64, the Rams at 2.48. The Rams are getting a 3-point start, 2.04. Now, if you want the 3.5, it's at 1.85. 46.5 is the total here, opened at 49. Ravens open, look ahead line -1. Adam Chernoff, I will start with you first here. When I look at this game, Adam, you have one team that you would suggest is going to get a hell of a lot of public support, and you have one team that people are going to go, oh, do I really like this team anymore? And we look at the Rams last year, everyone wanted to beat them, but will we get some value on the Rams this week just due to public perception?
Sully, you know the answer all too well. What's the Jared Goff handicapping checklist?
Well, he's at home here, so I can't use this one. Is he on the road?
Yeah, no. He's not on the road. He's not going to be under pressure. And he's not laying points. So this is a case where we can seriously look at backing Jared Goff. If we want to put some context on those numbers, the Ravens 31st in pass rush grade on Pro Football Focus. And if we look at the rest of the schedule, the last time the Rams faced a team worse than 18th in pass rush was the Cincinnati Bengals. Jared Goff had 119 passer rating and 12.0 yards per attempt. That was the London game just a couple of weeks ago. But I think that this goes a little bit deeper than just the Jared Goff handicap against the Ravens defense. We can actually flip the script here. Everybody's talking about Lamar Jackson, ESPN, NFL Network, all of the podcasts, all of the radio shows. Is Lamar the MVP? Are the Ravens the Super Bowl favorites? They're getting all of the news this week. And we saw this number go from 1-point favorites for the Ravens on the look ahead all the way up to 3.5 to begin the week. So a pretty significant number based on a lot of narrative. And I've been pretty critical of this Rams defense. I really haven't come around to them until recently. But if we want to look at the numbers against the narratives, the Rams are 9th against the pass and 5th against the rush for the season. But if we sort of isolate those numbers to account for the Ramsey addition and the reshuffling of the secondary, they're 5th against the pass and 2nd against the rush. They've also allowed the least amount of explosive plays for 15 yards or more, both in the pass and on the ground. The Ravens obviously rank very high running the football, 54% of their runs, but they've only played one team that ranks inside the top 10 for rush defense efficiency, and that was the Pittsburgh Steelers. Look at what the Ravens did in that game, 3.8 yards per play. And they were outgained by 1.5 yards per play overall. They needed OT to get that win. They snuck by with a 3-point road win. So now that the Rams, really the most difficult opponent from a defensive perspective that they're going to face this season, gets a little bit difficult when you're starting to look at how much this number is inflated. Also a nice spot for the Rams here where they can run the football against the Ravens rush defense. 31st in the NFL rushing success rate the last 4 weeks. Last time the Rams have faced an opponent like this was all the way back in week 1 in terms of a comparable for rush defense. And they went up for 150 yards on the ground and just over 5.0 yards per carry. So I think this is a spot where Baltimore is getting a little bit too overpriced, and we're seeing some value against them for the first time in quite a while.
Brad Allen, everyone wants to be with the Ravens this week. Are you one of them? Are you with Adam here thinking taking the points is the better play?
I love the Ravens.
Yeah, I do too.
In an inordinate amount. So just to start with the pressure stuff, so the pass rush isn't that good, but they've basically realised that, and they've started blitzing about 40% of their defensive plays in the last month or so. And so they are getting pressure, and they can do that because the back end is so good. I think we've spoken before about these corners now. They've got 3 elite corners. They started running out this dime package where they get 6 DBs on the field. So they've got Earl Thomas, Marlon Humphreys, Jimmy Smith, and then the Marcus Peters, and then a couple more. So they've basically got elite corners and safeties who can cover one-on-one. So they're sending blitzes 40% of the time, and they're actually number 1 in the league in QB hit rate when adjusted for the opponent. Over the last month, since week 7, they've been number 1 in Football Outsiders defensive DVOA. They've also been number 1 in offensive DVOA in that time. They lead the entire league in offensive EPA. They lead it in rushing EPA. They've scored on the most possessions out of any team, 56.7% of their possessions, which is in line with like these historic offenses, like 2007 Patriots, 0.3% below them. It's above the 2016 Falcons, who ripped up everyone. It's above the 2018 Chiefs. Yeah. But basically, I just think this is the best team in the league, and I think I've talked about the Rams endlessly. I don't think they're very good. I think they're below average. The offensive line and the play action was the strength of the game. Well, Jared Goff now has the worst pass rating off play action in the league. The offensive line's decimated. The defensive numbers are pumped up by the 4th easiest schedule of opposing offenses. I think the Ravens are going to obliterate them. Just the last point, because I don't want to go on about them all night, is so that they beat the Seahawks. Russell Wilson had never lost by more than 7 in 40 games or something in the NFL. They beat him by 2 touchdowns. They beat Patriots by 17, and then Deshaun Watson, the stat, he hadn't lost by more than 7 since high school, and they went and obliterated them. Like, this is just complete superb football team.
Yeah, and they're averaging just over 34 points a game as well. I mean, I just from my perspective, they got kind of found out in the playoffs last year, but I think they were a bit one-dimensional here. But the passing game here is working so well as well. So you've got on both sides. Drew Dinsick, you were absolutely on the money with the Ravens -4 on the show last week. Differing opinions here with Adam and Brad here. Break the tie for me.
I'm going to go with the Rams, assuming
we're going against Brad Allen again, guys.
Well, I'm in a very advantageous spot here. I staked a lot on Ravens preseason, thinking that hey, this is a much more dynamic offense than people are giving them credit for. John Harbaugh is the kind of coach that can make the most out of this talent, and he's proving it right. And so I mean, I'm looking at them now like, yes, they've achieved what I had hoped from them, and I can kind of, I think, with pretty clear eyes, evaluate this is the very top of the market on them. The idea that the look ahead here was Ravens pick 'em, Ravens by 1, and then it opened on the other side of 3.5. Like, that is a win probability swing that is massive, and it is entirely founded in people were all tuned in, and that the only good game on Sunday morning was that, or the only perceived good game, the only meaningful game was Baltimore-Houston, and Houston just completely got taken apart by this Ravens team. So I think that it's an awful lot to think that just that one performance really, where they were amazing, and now everybody's been pumped up on Lamar Jackson highlights, and I got to think that that's entirely influencing this number to be on the wrong side of 3 here. If it was a flat 3, I'm probably staying off of this game, but at 3.5, I think you have to make a play on the Rams. And I think this really what interests me the most in this one, probably coming in on the Rams in the second half here, because I think this is going to be a pretty competitive game through the first half. I think it's going to be probably pretty close at halftime. And this is the perfect setup where you have East Coast team traveling to the West in a primetime game. That the likelihood that they're going to be dragging a little bit coming out of halftime. We see this pretty often when, you have the West Coast versus East Coast in primetime. The likelihood that the body clock kind of catches up and drags the Ravens a little bit in the second half, I think is real. So I'm probably going to be mostly interested in, hoping that this is, Ravens a little bit ahead at halftime, and then pounce on an opportunity for the Rams to come back in the second half.
Brad Allen, you wanted to come back in there, sir?
Yeah, it could be a spot for Ravens first half -2.5. You get that around 1.9-ish. That might be the look, and then you can back the Rams second half if you so choose.
Okay, could even do a double result there. Prof, I hate to do it to you. I hate to do it, you man.
Democracy wins.
Democracy, it always wins.
Doesn't matter to me, Sully. I'll put my bet.
This is why we have a panel of 3 gents, so there are no ties. That's what I love. Okay, we're locking in the Rams +3. Plus 3.5 even at 1.86 currently at Matchbook. Prof, you were right last week, so keep the faith, sir. Keep the faith. Okay, let's move on to Sunday night's NFC battle. The Green Bay Packers head on the road to the San Francisco 49ers up there in Santa Clara. Current betting on the money line at Matchbook, the Green Bay Packers 2.54. The San Francisco 49ers at 1.61. 3.5, that key number. With the hook at 1.9, you can back the Packers with the start. 48 is the total. Drew Dinsick, I'll start with you here first. Packers fresh off a bye, plenty of rest. The 49ers, like we've seen in the last 2 or 3 weeks, there seems to be a lot more questions. Are there enough question marks for you here to be getting on board with the Packers?
I was so when this line popped on Sunday, I kind of did some soul searching. Is the right angle here to go Packers, or are we looking for an over? Because for sure we're at the time of the season where the questioning how well the San Francisco 49ers defense will be able to keep up their amazing play to this point in the season is really influencing some of these totals. And I would say for sure their strength in the pass rush matching up against a pass protection unit in Green Bay that's performing extremely well this season, I think sets up for a showdown. We looked at 44.5 on the open and we said that number's too low. Let's get involved now. Wake up the next morning, it's 45.5. Wake up the next morning, it's 46.5. It's up to 47.5. That to me tells me the market is expecting Kittle to be a go. It's expecting Sanders to be a go. I think that was kind of the one thing I was a little hesitant on before really getting involved in this over, was making sure that some of the important pieces for the San Francisco offense were going to be live, because I don't have a ton of respect for the Green Bay defense. I think they can pretty clearly be exploited, and Kyle Shanahan's doing a masterful job with this offense right at this point through the season. So I think this turns into a pretty classic shootout here, with both teams getting into the high to mid 20s. And I back the over on this one. 47.5, it's starting to get a little tight. Maybe at this point you might as well probably. Actually, 47.5 is still a fine number. I don't think you're trying to sell any higher. But,
it's actually, I'm going to bear bad news to the listeners here, but it's 48 currently a match.
48, wow.
Yeah,
geez.
So I mean, look, this is why you should be listening to the Deep Dive podcast on your way to work on Monday morning, guys. Get that early line. So yeah, look, Drew, just even on that, so you guys, yourself and Andy are probably on 44.5. 48 now, like obviously key numbers are 27-21 game is 48 flat. Is it kind of getting a bit too high for you at this stage?
I don't think so. I mean, I think that at this point, 47.5, 48, 48.5, you're really talking about are we going to get pretty efficient red zone scoring? Are we going to score touchdowns and not field goals? This sort of thing. I had this game landing in the 51 range, so I would still play it over. 48, it's tight. Everything kind of has to go right, but I would still think that this turns into a shootout here. And I mean, we saw it last time that the Niners were in prime time. They go into overtime 24-24. That was the kind of game where nothing went right for either offense, and even still. That managed to make it over the total. So, and I think, there's a lot of opportunity here for both offenses to look pretty good. Should be a good weather game, in prime time. Means a lot for both teams, in terms of playoff seeding. So this is a nice one to look for an over, I think.
Maybe it's just that Cardinals high-octane offense, but if I was watching that game the last night, and that 49ers defense looks pretty gassed. And if you look back to their last 3 games, their stats are kind of heading south. They're not the defense that they were a couple of weeks ago. It's almost like that bye week came too early in the season for them. Adam Chernoff, what are you thinking here? Drew loves the over. What's your angle?
Yeah, you shouldn't be listening to any other show except for this one in your NFL prep per week. But I'm
talking about Monday mornings though, so this is we're not on this.
No. But the point I'm trying to make is there's a very popular show that airs later in the week, which happens to have a lot of influence, and the people behind that show took a very large position on this over. And so I think after listening to this, you're going to hear a lot of positive discussion about the over in this game. And this means a couple of different things. If you got in early, you're going to have pretty substantial value. But I think if you're reading between the lines, much like Whale said, and I think he was far and away before anyone on this one, Deebo Samuel, Emmanuel Sanders, Matt Breida, George Kittle, likely favoring them to all be back in this game. So obviously an enormous boost for this 49ers offense. Dee Ford and Quan Williams still on the injury report as well. So we'll know more about them a little bit later today. But this is a matchup that sets up pretty well for San Francisco when you consider that Green Bay struggles against a couple things. That's running backs receiving out of the backfield, tight ends, and play action. And if you're going to drop an offense which utilizes all 3 very extensively, you're going to talk about the San Francisco 49ers. So from a game plan perspective, sets up quite well. The Packers went through a span where they faced offenses ranked between 3rd and 11th between weeks 5 and 9. They gave up at least 24 points in each of them. Pretty vulnerable in the middle. I still think the secondary little bit better than their numbers might suggest, but the rush defense certainly just an area that's neglected. So likely to see San Francisco have a lot of success moving the football. And then from the Packers perspective, very similar to what they did against the Oakland Raiders, having a ton of success out of heavy sets, 2 tight ends, play action, getting Rodgers on the move. That's a spot where the San Francisco zone defense really struggles, especially up the seam. So this is a spot where I do think that both offenses have success, but at 47.5, 48, that's pretty steep just considering how well both of these teams match up against the opposing defenses on the ground. But if you got in early, like Whale and probably many others, you're sitting on a very good ticket this weekend.
All right, Brad Allen, what are you thinking about on this one?
Yeah, I can't go over 48. I don't think. I think that's probably just been squeezed a little too much out personally. I think it might be one to play similar to the Monday night game where you take the East Coast team on the first half. So this number suggests that the Niners are a slightly better team if we include the Packers' bye week there, a bit of extra prep. I'm not sure that is the case. So that's basically driven by the Niners' defensive ratings. And if you look, again, these two teams have faced quite disparate schedules. So the Packers defense has faced the toughest schedule by Football Outsiders DVOA, whereas the Niners is one of the three easiest. So I imagine, you remember early in the season where the Packers played the Bears and then the Vikings or whoever it was, everyone's raving about, oh, it's reformed, it's a new defense. And then they've obviously faced a lot tougher and they've come back down to earth. So I honestly think if you gave these two defenses the same schedule, they wouldn't be that far apart. And then you look at the offensive metrics, by Football Outsiders, the Packers are at 5th, the Niners are down at 16th. Jimmy G's got the most games with an interception this year, whereas Rodgers looks a bit like he fit better into this Matt LaFleur system. So I would tend to lean with the better offense here, which would be the Packers, but I would take the 2.5, so we avoid that possible circadian rhythm disadvantage.
Okay, and you can back that currently a matchbook at 2.0 even money, Prof. First half handicap. We haven't done one of those in a while on the main pods, Prof. Right, let's move on to one of the only two games in the 9:30 slot on Sunday. I hate when this happens. And the other game we're left with, the bad game is the Jags against the Titans, but the good game we're going to look at is the Dallas Cowboys at the New England Patriots. The Cowboys fresh from their win in Detroit on the money line here at a big price, 3.44. Patriots pretty much unbeatable at home, 1.38. 6.5 is the main handicap at matchbook, 1.96. Dallas getting the start there. Total is 45.5. Prof, I will stay here with you for this one. We don't believe in trends, of course, but the Patriots are trending so good at home the last couple of seasons. But I think you want to take the points here.
Yeah, I feel like we've got quite a nice read on the Patriots. We were with them last week against them when they got smashed up by the Ravens.
Sorry, no, you were with them last week, Prof. Put your hands in the air.
Yeah, no,
congratulations to you. Yeah, sorry. You were with them. Yeah.
You lot chucked me out and told me I was talking nonsense. But so this is another defense doesn't matter pick. Obviously, we've got the Cowboys, the best pass offense in the league by Football Outsiders against the best pass defense in the league by Football Outsiders. And obviously, I'm taking the offense here because we know that defensive metrics are just a function of who you faced, and the Patriots have had one of the easiest schedules in the league. You know, the Bills, it's the Dolphins, it's the Jets, it's garbage. They've not faced anyone like these Cowboys. And what I do like about this is that the Vikings game might have prompted a little change at the Cowboys. We know for years that they've been all about Zeke. They paid him ludicrous amounts of money, and he looked a little bit washed out. You know, a lot of metrics suggest he doesn't have that elusiveness he used to have. He's a bit of a plodder and a thumper. But there was the Cowboys after that Vikings game, before last week's game against the Lions. They had a kind of closed-door meeting. Garrett went in there. Nobody knows exactly what he said, but he apologised for the way he managed the team and said he needs to make some changes. They come out against the Lions with their 30th ranked rush defense, and they let Prescott throw it 46 times. He went 444 yards, 3 touchdowns, they put up 35 points. And that was with Amari Cooper nursing an injury there. He played about half a snap. They've still got weapons. They've got Gallup, who's pretty much a number one in himself.
They're getting great production. There are 2 and 3 guys there, Prof, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Cobb looks revived a bit, and then they're also playing Tony Pollard at running back, it looks quite a lot more dynamic than Zeke at the minute. So I am confident that the Cowboys are going to go over their team total. That's a lot. Put that in the bank. So I've played the Cowboys plus 6.5. I think that's a stupid line personally. I've also played over 45.5 because I'm expecting a little bit more out of Tom Brady. He's going to get Isaiah Wynn back, his left tackle. I thought he'd be back last week, but he's eligible this week. The Patriots also, they've basically realised that they can't run the ball because their offensive line isn't very good. So they're throwing at the highest rate in the league over the last month. They've led the league in no huddles. They're averaging 70 plays a game. That's also the highest in the league over the last month. So they're basically putting the ball in Tom Brady's hands and saying, chuck it about because we can't run the ball. And I've touched on this before. The Cowboys' defense, despite playing a very easy schedule, is still below average, so that suggests to me that Brady should have some success in keeping up here. So I expect a high-scoring one with the Cowboys.
So you're on Cowboys plus 6.5. You're on Dallas team total. So team total, looking at the current line, 45.5. You're going to come in under the 21 there. So
it's insane. That's mental. It's absolutely mental. There's so much respect for this New England.
Yeah.
Obviously, they shut down the Eagles last week. The Eagles have no weapons, and there was 15, 20 miles an hour wind. Both quarterbacks were just chucking it into the turf half the time because they weren't accurate downfield. So I think that's probably why this is a little depressed, because this New England defense is a myth.
You know how much trust they have in Dak, because they had to get that first down towards the end of the game. And so many teams getting the other team to burn their timeouts. They run, and then maybe punt the ball. They put the ball in his hands, and that'll tell you how much confidence they have in Dak. And rightly so. He's been great.
Yeah.
Drew Dinsick, where are you lying on this one? Cowboys all the way or the Pats?
Well, I'm obviously seeing things very clearly because I've talked myself a couple of times into the Eagles had that one if a couple of things went right last week. If Aguilar just catches that pass instead of bobbling it, if Lane Johnson doesn't get hurt, they were rolling. But in seriousness, I think if it were not for a coaching mismatch between Belichick and Jason Garrett, I'm probably making the case on this podcast to back Dallas on the money line. I think they're the right side. I think they're going to be absolutely a handful for the coverage and for the Patriots defense, which we have still yet to see tested by a dynamic passing quarterback. And there's no better passing quarterback in the NFL right now than Dak Prescott, which is something that's insane that I would be saying this 12 weeks into the season. But here we are. His performance this year has been superlative. His receivers are creating separation. His offensive coordinator is coming up with wonderful schemes and routes to get guys open. I love seeing it, and I would love to see them truly test this Patriots defense and put up some points. I like that look on Cowboys team total over. That's been a solid look pretty much all season. And then, the Patriots offense, the Cowboys defense is underwhelmed. They've underperformed. They look like lethargic and tackled extremely poorly against that Vikings team on Sunday Night Football a couple weeks ago. I think they're going to be motivated up for this spot. They've been potentially looking forward to this one for a couple of weeks, chance to knock off the Kings. So hopefully the defense shows up. I like the matchup with the Dallas pass rush against the Patriots offensive line, which I still have humongous questions about. And if they can just put two hats on Julian Edelman and make Tom Brady beat them with anyone else out there, then I think it's going to be a tough task for Patriots to go score for score with the Cowboys. And I took plus 6.5. I would look at +6 if it starts to drift in that direction as we get closer and closer to kickoff here. And I'm going to give a strong consideration to adding a small take on the Cowboys money line for the upset.
Maybe a sprinkle, maybe a money line sprinkle. Adam, Chernoff, Cowboys all the way for the two guys. In agreement there?
I don't know if I can add anything to what Drew and Brad have already said, but I guess just from my view, I sort of worked my way through the handicap. And obviously, if you're just looking at numbers alone, it becomes extremely difficult to make a case against this Dallas offense getting 6.5 points, potentially even 7, the way that this number is moving. I think it does actually touch the 7 at some point this week, but you look at the top team in success rate, third in rushing success rate. If you want to put a comparable to this, the only other team inside the top 10 the Patriots have faced all season were the Ravens, and they put up 37, albeit in a very different way than likely what we'll see from the Cowboys this week. The one thing that really concerns me, though, is this Cowboys defense. Again, as Brad mentioned, below average schedule, 22nd in both passing and rushing defensive success rate. And if we look at the Patriots, they're 12th in offensive efficiency, which quite comparable to the Vikings and Lions that we've seen the Cowboys face in the last 2 weeks, where they gave up a pretty effortless 55 points in those two games combined. So it's one where I almost get there with the Cowboys, but then I just get concerned facing this up-tempo offense on the road that potentially this is something that maybe I'm not fully seeing through. The only thing that really gives me some solace in that Cowboys defense, the Patriots won another game at sub 4.3 yards per play. I believe that's their 5th this season. And that 4.3 is important because that's the 32nd ranked team, the New York Jets, in terms of yards per play offensively. So they're winning games with the worst than the worst team in the league in terms of yards per play output per game. So interested to see how this Patriots offense continues to struggle, but really doesn't get the press to justify it.
All right, so we've got at least 2 plays. Prof, I'll leave this one to you because we shafted you on the first game again. Team total. So looking at the numbers right now, we don't have these up on Matchbook quite yet, but it's pretty early in the week yet for team totals. But looking at it, 45.5, if they're 6.5-point dogs, that's 19.5. So another key number, Prof. We should be taking that over even the main game total, right?
I mean, that is one of the bets of the season, in my opinion.
Oh, okay. All right. I love when the professor says one of the bets of the season. That's always pretty good. Start. Adam Chernoff, we have never talked about the New York Jets in the main frame all season long. We're in week 12. And
Are they still playing?
Yeah, they're still playing. They're 3-7. They're on the main docket today. Let's have a look at the betting at Matchbook. Unfortunately, the Jets are an underdog even at home to the Raiders. Current betting at Matchbook, the Oakland Raiders 1.71 in the early game at MetLife on Sunday. The Jets 2.38. Main line is kind of in between 2.5, 3. Lots of Jets money all week. 46.5 is the total. Adam, I'll get to you in a second, but Drew Dinsick, let's start with you. You on the JETS this week?
I like the Jets this week, but I think there's a stronger play to be made on the over in this game. I think 46.5 is really underselling how well both of these offenses have kind of found themselves, what they do well, and how they can attack their opponents on defense. At the Jets defense, I guess what I would worry about backing the Jets is that if they have a lead, if they go conservative, if they try to run out the clock, they're going to struggle, which puts their defense in a tight spot to keep the Raiders from pulling off a comeback. I think either team here down in the fourth quarter of the game is going to be able to put pressure on through the passing game, score some points. I like the way that Darnold is playing right now. He's kind of rediscovered some confidence. I like the way that John Gruden is coordinating an offense right now. I really can't see either way that either of these teams kind of comes away with a lackluster performance offensively. Both get into the 20s pretty comfortably in my handicap here. And I think that this lands in the high 40s, low 50s. So I bet over 46.5, but I do concede that the folks who have come in with Jets money have a very strong angle that they're betting.
Yeah, last 4 Jets games have averaged totals of 50 points. Adam Chernoff, let's talk about these Jets for a second. One of the great things about getting an offense online is putting the Redskins and the Dolphins on your schedule in back-to-back weeks. But look, maybe it's needed, but this Jets offense all of a sudden looks pretty frisky.
So what are we saying here? Like 48-0 Jets win? Drew, is that what we're getting at? That sounds reasonable.
That's weird. I can't believe that. Yeah, I can't believe that. That's what you got too. This
on
is
the same
bizarre.
page.
Yeah.
Listen, look, what was that playoff game years ago where they beat the Colts 49-0 in New Jersey? It can't happen.
Peyton Manning too.
Game, yeah.
That was Chad Pennington over Peyton Manning.
Chad Pennington over Peyton Manning. Yeah, that was about
Classic.
right. That seemed right. Herm Edwards. That's what Jets fans do. We literally just cling on to any bit of nostalgia, and we refer to playoff games from 16 years ago. It's amazing stuff. Adam Chernoff, come on, let's go for it.
Green light to the over. Absolutely. And anything less than 47. It's amazing what a schedule can do, right? If we go back towards that Dolphins game 3 weeks ago, the Jets had a ton of injuries within their secondary. And if Darryl Roberts is out this week as he is trending, we're looking at Brian Poole, Arthur Maule, Darryl Roberts, Blesson Austin, and Maurice Candidate. Like, these people are not going to start for other teams in the NFL. But because they've played teams that rank 27th or worse in their 3 games as starter in terms of passing efficiency, their numbers and their grades look fantastic. And I think that was part of the reason why we saw some under money come in initially on this total to make it better than the 47 where it opened. But you look at the Jets' offense overall in the last couple of weeks, it's really come around, but they've faced secondaries, again, that rank in the bottom 4 of the NFL. Well, where do the Raiders rank? 30th. So it's not like it's going to be a step down in competition for the Jets here, and they're still going to have success. They've scored 26, 27, and 17 in the last 3 games. And
Adam, of course this offense is coming around. Adam Gase is an offensive genius. Have you not heard this before?
Well, and he gets the backing for 2020, and all of a sudden things turn around. But it just goes to show that Darnold he looks pretty good against pretty bad teams, and it's another pretty bad secondary with the Oakland Raiders. But then you look at the Raiders, it's going to be by far the most difficult passing attack the Jets have faced this season, 7th in terms of passing the football. And where I think that the Jets potentially have a little bit of value here on the point spread, the Raiders run the football a lot. 45% of plays are running the football. We've seen Gruden in travel spots this year kind of skimp on the game plan. He's brilliant with the X's and O's overall, but early in games on the road, he has struggled a couple times. Jets #1 in rushing defense success rate in the front 7. And so if Oakland comes out and starts to run the football a little bit, gives the Jets a chance to get out to a bit of a lead. And then I think we're going to see Oakland quickly shift gears, and their top 5 passing efficiency offense is going to come through. These are 2 secondaries that are not anywhere near league average against very questionable schedules altogether. It's an opportunity for both quarterbacks to move the football. I think we see this go into the 50s.
Brad Allen, it's bombs away on the over, 46.5 to be exact. What are you thinking on this one? You're not going to come in the under here, surely.
No, I've not got involved with this one at all, to be honest. I can see the case for efficiency, but in sort of a role reversal, I know Adam's usually the one cautioning about kind of pace here, is that the Raiders, they got the 3rd highest situation neutral rush rate, and then also the 28th, or the 4th slowest team as well. So they want to run the ball. They are going to go very slow if you give them the chance. So, I mean, we've just seen them play this 17-10 game with the Bengals. They happily just sort of rumble up and down the field. So, yeah, I do think we'll see efficiency. But basically, if the Jets get out early, then I think, and they fought, which they have been doing in recent weeks, I'm sure Adam will have seen it. The script has been working for Case. They've gone a bit more no huddle. If the Jets can have success early and force the Raiders to up their pace and abandon the run a little bit, then I think a live over would be good. But I would be a bit concerned that if the Raiders get control of this, they're just going to grind it into the dust.
Yeah, and it would be just like Adam Gase to take away that no huddle when it is working, because he is an offensive genius and he knows much better than any of us. Oh my God, I'm a bitter man. I am a bitter man. Right, let's take our minds off the Jets, Adam. But look, I think a strong look there for the over anyway, over 46.5.
Yep.
5th game on the docket. Last one we're going to cover in depth is the Eagles at home to the Seahawks. So current betting at Matchbook, Seattle Seahawks here have been absolutely pounded all week at Matchbook. They're now down to 2.06 on the money line. 1.94 the Eagles are. 1.5 is the main handicap, but I think this goes off probably close to pick 'em. 48 is the total. Brad, I'll start with you here on this one. Look, you opposed the Eagles rightfully last week. Opposing them again this week?
No, I wish I'd gone there early on these Seahawks, like I know Drew did, I think, on his podcast. I just think the Eagles are still overrated based on these kind of what they could be. We still have this vision of them, if they put it all together, go to the Super Bowl. But as I said last week, they just have 0 threats on the outside. That Aguilar drop, that is who Aguilar is. There's a reason he became a meme, because that guy was talking about catching a baby and not dropping it like Aguilar.
No, it wasn't the easiest catch, but it was a catch that a top level receiver getting X amount of million has to, you've got to be making those. This isn't college.
Yeah. And that's kind of the point, that the receivers just are not helping Wentz whatsoever. They've been doing that all year. Now, Lane Johnson is in the concussion protocol, and he could be a big loss, especially with Jadeveon Clowney seeming to catch fire. There's quite significant splits for Wentz with and without Lane Johnson and running the ball, which we also saw in game last week as well. As I say, at the current number, I can't really make a good case. I do think the Seahawks are a better team. They've got the better quarterback, but on the road at this start time, I can't back the current number.
It sounds like a stay away for your prof at
the
moment, Joe. True Dinsick, the public loves Seattle this week, but does the whale capper love Seattle this week?
Yeah, I don't think I can't blame them. I think the market is moving this number in the right direction. This, at worst, should be a pick 'em. I think there's a case to be made that Seattle should be a small favorite. And I think all the points Brad raised were valid. I think I was hopeful that at some point we would see the Eagles get healthy and they would kind of maximize their potential and make a little bit of run, make a little noise in the NFC. And as I sit here and look at them now, I think, no, this is more like a team we need to be thinking about in the 2020 futures market once people have forgotten about them. I would also like to kind of do some soul searching on how good Doug Peterson is as a in-game coach and tactician. Sure felt like he did not have a plan B once Lane Johnson went out in that game, and that was pretty frustrating. And the Lane Johnson potentially missing from injury is a huge issue with the with the Philly team. That if your ceiling is 20 points probably offensively, even against a pretty poor Seattle defense, then I think you're in deep trouble with what you are trotting out there defensively against Russell Wilson, who pretty clearly is playing at an MVP level. This is a lot of the same strengths in terms of matchups that we saw when the Cowboys faced the Eagles a couple of weeks ago in Sunday Night Football. Eagles defense is slightly healthier than they were then. Maybe they're a little bit less likely to be giving up plays and gashes and just having a totally lopsided affair. This should be a pretty competitive one. This should be fun to watch. But I do think Seattle's the better team. I do think they get the win, and at a plus money price for anything over 2.0 for Seattle on the money line, I think is a bet on play.
All right, Adam Chernoff, what are you thinking here?
Well, I'm probably going to take some criticism for this from the listeners, but I'll look Seattle here, and that might be hard for some folks to understand, hearing how I mentioned them as quite overpriced a couple of weeks ago, and my still standing outlook on the Eagles going through the rest of the season. But I think it's a point to make that if you're taking a longer-term outright or futures position, that you don't have to be married to that every single week of the season. You're allowed to bet against the team you potentially bet on or sold. And just from a comparable standpoint, right? Seek comparables to build a handicap. The Eagles are 6th in defensive efficiency. And I think after what we saw against New England, that's probably where most people are going to start this handicap. But you look at the Seahawks, they played 4 teams that rank inside the top 10, 3rd, 5th, 8th, and 2nd. In those games, they've scored 28, 27, 30, and 27. So the Seahawks have played teams as good as this Eagles defense and had a ton of success against them. And then you look at the other way around. It doesn't line up very well for the Philadelphia Eagles going against the Seattle Seahawks defense, which has performed well in some key situations. So I look at this game overall from within my ratings, and if the Eagles put forth one of their best efforts of the season, then I think that this number presents some value on Philadelphia. But really any other situation, it doesn't look that great for the Philadelphia Eagles overall. You're looking at this number and it gets awfully tight, and you try to make a case for the Eagles putting forth a great performance. As Drew mentioned, Lane Johnson still in the concussion protocol. He's not going to be practicing. Jordan Howard still not cleared for contact. We saw what happened without him in the backfield. And then you look at Alshon Jeffrey. He's not at practice this morning either. So those are 3 key pieces from the offense, which really looked hard-pressed to find success against the New England defense last week. Everything just looked forced for the Eagles. So I still think that the upside is there, but with so many question marks on the health side, seeing how Seattle has performed, and then also looking at how the Eagles have done defensively against some top-ranked efficiency offenses, it just doesn't set up well for the Eagles this week. Still think they get it done over the long term, but this week's tough.
It's quite interesting what you touched on there, regards not getting too stubborn with your, initial assessments. The beauty of this is the 17 regular season weeks. I mean, any of us can kind of change our mind, and it's important not to get too entrenched in our views. Right, guys. Let's before we go to any other business here, let's jump back into the quad box here, and let's talk about maybe an outside pick that may just cause a shock last week. We had 4 last week. 1 winner, and that was the New York Jets. But let's be honest, they were 2-point dog. I'm not exactly going to take too much credit for that. And they were playing, one of the 3 worst teams in the league in the Washington Redskins. But Drew, look, if I gave you a £10 bet where I gave you your money back and you just wanted to take a flyer this weekend at something at a big price in the money line, where would you look to spend that £10, sir?
Well, we're gonna see something, right? I mean, it's not going to be another week in a row of every money line favorite covering, right? In seriousness, though, I think Dallas makes for a good look. I think I think Denver probably is live. And Tampa Bay is live. But I'm going to take my free swing on Indianapolis on Thursday Night Football. I love the coaching advantage that they have, and Frank Reich knowing exactly how to make this team pay for their weaknesses. I think we're seeing a decent amount of Deshaun Watson trying to do too much to make up for some of the limitations of the Houston team overall, and potentially some weapons back for Jacoby Brissett and kind of show us what they showed us last time they played Houston, where they unleashed this aggressive pass-happy attack that Houston was totally unprepared for. I think that works again in the absence of Marlon Mack, and at that point you just need your healthy defensive pieces out there to do their job, and I think Indy gets the win.
All right, Frank Reich, you're a big fan, Drew. He's essentially, and a lot of people are of this opinion that he was the main reason why the Eagles won the Super Bowl. But yeah, I like the angle here. Coles, Adam Chernoff, what are you thinking here for your £10 refund flyer?
Brad nailed the game state discussion at the end of the Jets-Raiders topic. That's spot on. If the Jets get out to an early lead, they win that game outright. So just based on the prospect that I think that they do, and then the Raiders have some struggles early running the football, I'll go Jets money line.
I'm so surprised by that one. Really surprised. Brad Allen, what are you thinking there?
Got to be the Cowboys, isn't it?
The Cowboys. Yeah, well, look, you made a pretty compelling case for them. They're probably going to be the biggest price of this selection. What are they currently? 3.46 even. My one is going to be the New York Football Giants in Chicago. I think they're fresh from their bye. I know they're still probably a terrible team, but the Bears just look so bad, and Trubisky, he's so bad. So, yeah, it could be Chase Daniel this week. Who knows? So that ACA, believe it or not, pays 56.0 at Matchbook, 55 to 1 in fractional terms. But get on early because the first selection is Thursday night. Gents, any other kind of games jumping out you, Drew?
Yes.
Brad, sorry, Adam, I'll go to you first, Adam, because sure. I asked, for your best bet pre-recording, and you said you had 6. So there's got to be another 2 we missed there somewhere.
No, the week is setting up for a lot of great opportunities. I think, as I mentioned at the start of the show, they went a very certain way last week, and we're seeing a bit of an adjustment overall with some of these numbers. A couple setups early in the week as well with some of these totals going one way and then quickly turning back the other. I'm still waiting on potentially 2 more overs. I think one we didn't touch on was the Tennessee Titans Jacksonville Jaguars game, just how those 2 teams match up. It's sitting a little bit higher than 41 right now. If that one gets to a flat 41, then that's another, I think, green light to the over, like we talked about with the Jets and the Raiders.
Drew Dinsick, anything else in your card?
Yeah, we didn't mention one in the Dogs. I kind of wonder if Cincinnati's live this week to get their first win. You look at who's missing here for the Steelers. Mason Rudolph has been poor this season, but he's been poor even with kind of generally good protection and good weapons around him. And now Smith-Schuster's likely gone. His other wide receivers were concussed and injured in various ways. And now you take your starting center out, your guard is hurt, your tackle is banged up. Like, this sets up for a really, really ugly game. And Cincinnati may win by accident 6-3 or something like that. So I personally like the under. Honestly, I don't know how as bad a defense as Cincinnati is, as poor as their tackling is, but they're going to get pressure. They're going to get sacks. Mason Rudolph's not going to, with this supporting staff, with this supporting team on offense, this could get real bad. I like the under in this one.
It's 39. So essentially, you're kind of betting that who gets the 20 here even.
I don't know that either team gets the 20.
Yeah.
I mean, if you saw the Raiders-Bengals game last week, 17-7, there literally was zero urgency from either side to really put pressure on. You can't. If you're Cincinnati, you got to keep your defense off the field to the degree you can. You're going to have to run the ball 50 times. You're not going to have your starting receivers out there. This is going to be an ugly game. And, the rivalry may manifest in a way that Cincinnati goes for the kill shot here and ends ends Pittsburgh's season.
Well, look,
I like the under a lot.
Yeah, one team may get to 20 or 21, but the other team ain't getting to 20 or 21. It's probably going to be 14 or 17, and your under still going to catch. Just on the Steelers, though, like, it's been discussed ad nauseum this stage, this whole Myles Garrett thing. But people seem to have forgotten that Mason Rudolph was absolute trash in that game before he got his head knocked off, with 7 seconds to go. And like, that seems to be kind of discounted. It's almost like, and I don't want to say this willy-nilly, but he's almost got like a free pass because he was assaulted in such a way. And yeah, it's
smoke screen, man.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it was like he's probably delighted in a way.
In the game, the main storyline in the game, what we talked about at halftime, what everyone was talking on Twitter, put in Duck Hodges. Mason Rudolph does not have. He did not have it in that game, and now you're taking away his top receiving threats, and his running back, by committee is is a walking wounded. This is bad.
Yeah, Prof, we ain't going to get 35.5 in James Washington this week with those other two guys out.
No, I like the under there as well. As you say, I just don't see how anyone moves the ball. And then I like that over Adam talked about. I took over 41.5 in Tennessee Jags game. Just sneakily, Tannehill's been very, very good this season. I'm looking at this Dakota metric I've written about a few times. Combines basically EPA and completion percentage adjusted for depth, and Tannehill is sitting ahead of Lamar Jackson and behind Russell Wilson. Now, obviously, he's got a smaller sample size, but he's played very well so far this season. And the Titans should just run all over those Jags, who were smashed last week by the Colts as well on the ground. So, tough.
Are you suggesting Tannehill should be the MVP of the league? Because that's all we're hearing about Lamar.
That is exactly what I'm suggesting, yeah.
And he's doing it with one of the worst offensive coordinators in the league, too.
Yeah.
I mean, he really is doing something pretty outstanding. And honestly, like, it just goes to show they should have started him from Jump Street. Forget about Mariota. And the fact that they forced that in the first couple of weeks of the season really derailed them. They would be clearly in control of the AFC South if they had gone Tannehill week 1.
Yeah. Talking of MVP, Dak Prescott at sort of 14, 16, 20 to 1, I think it's worth a shout. Because after he carves up the Patriots and the Bills in the next 2 weeks, everyone's going to be like, oh, he's just carved up 2 good pass defenses. He must be good. Well,
3 weeks in a row, he's going to be the most watched game in the entire NFL. If he does well these next 3 weeks, he's going to make himself $200 million.
But look, the price is right in Lamar because he's going to have to be absolutely brutal from here on out to lose this, surely. And you still got Russell Wilson could just going to come in on the rail as well.
Lamar hasn't played the Jets yet. He does in a couple of weeks.
There you go. Surely,
real quick on the MVP talk. People forget the voters almost always reward the team that has the most wins. So if on a team level, if the Ravens let down, if they lose to the Rams this week, if they slip into the 3 or 4 seed instead of clinching the 2 seed, then it does open the door for Russell Wilson. If Seattle wins the NFC West, for instance, if they get a second win against the Niners and squeak out that division, then you can pretty much write the ticket then that he's going to win it.
Yeah, okay, guys, lots of good thoughts, lots of good bets. Before we get to best bets, if you haven't got a Matchbook account, you would like to get involved, and £10 refund is your first bet. So if you place your £10 bet on one of our underdogs, the Giants, the Bengals, one of those, if they lose, you get your money back. That applies for new customers only. Your bet must be placed within 7 days of sign up. If your bet loses, we will refund your stake up to a maximum of £10 or dollars or euro. ACCA bets do not qualify. You must be 18 or over. Please gamble responsibly at all time. And you can check that out at offer.matchbook.com, which will be on the bottom of the screen right now. Right, gentlemen, best bets time. 1 out of 4 last week. So, Adam Chernoff, let's keep this one pretty quick. Just we can have a little discussion. We have a few minutes left. Let's go rapid fire around there. Adam Chernoff, I'll start with you first. Your best bet of the week.
Rams plus 3.5.
Drew Dinsick.
I'm looking for the over in Cleveland. Same sort of story with the suspensions to the Cleveland defensive line. I don't see how they get any pressure on Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think this is a shootout, and the price at 44.5 is an over bet for me.
Love it. Brad Allen.
Dallas Cowboys plus 6.5.
My best bet, over 37.5. The Buffalo Bills at home to the Denver Broncos.
Hey now.
Oh, yeah. Well,
see that bomb coming from left field? That's that one.
If we've got time, Sully, you should explain that one to us.
All right.
Please.
Okay. There is rain in Buffalo on Sunday morning. Wind seems to be fine. Again, we have 5 or 6 days. That's always the one you look for in Buffalo, and they win first of all. Okay, both defenses, guys, are not as good as advertised. We saw it last week. Even Miami were moving the ball at times on Buffalo. Minnesota got up and down the field when they needed to, when they got it together. 37.5, guys, not a big total. For two offenses that, the last couple of weeks, Josh Allen's been lining up. John Brown is going well. And this guy, Brandon Allen, is probably not, the worst option here for the Broncos. And I can see a kind of let me think. I'm kind of thinking a 24, kind of 21 game. That's where I'm at. So, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a different angle.
As long as it's not a 21-14 kind of game, you're good, I guess, right?
There you go, yeah. or a 9-7 game. Those are pretty bad.
It's interesting, real quick, that Brandon Allen, like the market, he is emphatically covered twice now, and the market still has no respect for this kid. He may be good. He may get another cover. A lot of people are finally betting the Broncos. You've seen this number get hit pretty hard. So maybe the sharper community out there is.
I would love to make a match bet with somebody though, and Drew. Like they drafted Drew Lock there, and I would make a bet. I will make a bet that Brandon Allen will spend more time in the league than Drew Lock. But anyone, 50-50.
I mean, it's a good assumption that quarterbacks X, whoever it is going to be in the league longer than quarterback Y, who was drafted by John Elway.
Yeah, exactly. That is a really good point. Right, guys, anything else? No, nothing else going to jump me out. Great show. I'm really excited about week 12. Let's do better with our best bets this week, I think. Yeah.
Yes.
It'll probably be my one that leaves it down. But anyway. Yeah.
Cool. What's this? It's worth noting the schedule for next week. Are we going a little earlier with everyone listening for Thanksgiving?
So I think.
Sorry to put you on the spot, but
I think myself and Prof are going to cover Thanksgiving in a row. No respect, guys. We love you. But me and Prof, it's a bit of a thing we have. Prof was actually over in our head office this time last year for Thanksgiving, so it's just something we have. It's something we do.
We smashed it up, as I recall.
We absolutely smashed it up. But we will be back next week, not previewing the Thanksgiving games. Big slate of week 13 also. Thanks for watching today. Thanks for listening. Don't forget, if you're enjoying the podcast, please give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. Keeps the bosses happy. Or leave some nice comments on Twitter or YouTube. Not the bad comments, the nice comments. Best of luck at your bets. We'll talk to you next week.